In this video, I will cover everything you need to know to build your own terrarium ecosystem. So now let's get started. For this build, I will be using a 2-liter glass jar. This is a crystal glass jar with a clear transparent lid. The glass jar can be sourced from any departmental store. But throughout the video, I will be sharing the links for the purchase in the video description. The glass jar has crystal lid, a transparent one which helps the photosynthesis. Also make sure to check the glass jar all round to see if there is any air pockets. If you find one, avoid it running in the face of the terrarium. Now let's begin adding the drainage layer. Most of the glass jar won't have holes just like any planters to release the excess water. That's why I'm going to use lava substrate as our drain layer. In the absence of drain layer, the soil will end up retaining a lot of moisture. That can lead to rotting of plant roots. The lava rocks is lightweight, porous, and will provide housing for the beneficial bacteria, which will in return keep the ecosystem healthy. These rocks also looks very natural and will blend in very well with the substrate and the hardscape that we are going to use. I have poured the lava rocks into the container and will spread it evenly using my fingers. You can use any of the tools available in the house. The total height of the substrate, the drain layer, is 2 cm, which is 1/10 height of the total jar. And now it is the time to separate the drain layer from the substrate above it. I will be using a filter bag to make a barrier. This will act as a barrier and prevent substrate from falling into the drainage layer and clogging it. For this, you can also use a ready-made mesh, for which I will be leaving a link in the video description, making it easier for you to find and purchase. I have placed the jar on the filter bag, and now I will start cutting the net to find the diameter of the jar. And now I have a round cut net which will be going inside the jar and will act as a barrier between the drain layer and the soil which will be coming over it. I will now add a layer of activated carbon. Instead, you can also use horticulture charcoal for this layer. It will absorb excess water, prevent odors, and also avoid the buildup of bad bacteria. The carbon is added in a thin layer and evenly distributed across the surface. Now it's time to add the main layer, that is the soil. The soil is a blend of different ingredients which includes coca bead, sand, pine bark, some coal, sphagnum moss, and some aqua soil. I flatten the soil with an household spoon. Now I will give a slope from the back to the front of the container. This will create a force perspective in our design and also lift up the elements at the back for a better view. Hardscaping is one of the important elements to any terrarium design. In today's terrarium, I will use a dragonstone. The rocks that you select should be pre-washed before introducing it to the terrarium. It can have a lot of dirt and debris. The hardscape design will be very simple and will consist of only 2 pieces of rocks placed in a V design, also called as Iwagumi style, very popular among aquascapers. Both the pieces of rocks will be placed very close to each other but leaning in the opposite direction, making a V layout. I have moved the rocks many times until I am satisfied with the angle and its position. About 80% of the terrarium will be covered with cushion moss. The bigger chunk of the moss should be cut into smaller pieces to fit the foreground of the terrarium. Once you place the moss, gently press with your fingers or any of the tools that you will be using. I start placing the moss around the hardscape that I have built. It will create a green cover and bond everything together in a natural way. In the foreground, I will leave some space between two pieces of the moss. This space then I will fill with substrate. That will give a feeling of a pathway going towards the dragon rocks. To plant on those squeezed location, I use tweezers. The midground, foreground and the background are now almost covered with cushion moss. This is the gravel that I will be using to create a pathway in the front of the terrarium. I am using the spoon again to drop the gravel right on the empty spots. And then I arrange the gravel to look like a pathway leading towards the dragon rock. The hardscaping and the arrangement of moss is fully done. Now we'll move towards planting. I will be placing this lady fern to the background of the terrarium. This fern loves high humidity and I'm sure this will be happy in our closed terrarium. Before I place the plant, I make a hole with my tweezers into the soil and then I slide in the plant. It becomes very easy to plant in this way. The next plant is widely used into aquariums. This is Bolbitus mini, which I will be placing right in between two rocks. Next, I will take few cuttings of Selaginella red ruby, that is also called as the red ruby moss. This plant loves high humidity and I am sure it will be thriving into our closed terrarium system. There are a wide variety of moss and plants to select from, but remember, not all of them love high humidity, so beware when selecting the plants and moss. The red ruby moss then I place just next to the smaller piece of rock that is also the focal point of the terrarium. With this, our terrarium is completely planted. We are now almost at the finishing point of our today's build. I will start misting the terrarium with distilled water. This creates a rain-like effect inside our tiny jar. It is also very important for the plants to be hydrated. With some wiping of the glass, I can say our terrarium is ready. This concludes our build for today. Based on my experience, I can safely say that this terrarium has been set up for success for many years to come. I will leave a link to all the material used to make this terrarium in the video description. I hope you have found some value today, both from the technical and design perspective in this video. And I'm sure you will find success. Thanks for watching. This is Ismail from aquascape.ae.